It is my pleasure and it is my great honor to introduce Kate Kallot from NVIDIA to be our keynote speaker. Kate is not new to this community. She's been involved in tinyML for quite some time, starting from her years at ARM, where Kate was the director of AI and ML ecosystem. She did quite a bit of great accomplishments there, driving the whole ecosystem globally. And before that, Kate was at Intel, responsible for computer vision and ML type of applications. But now she has even bigger and even more exciting role. She's the head of emerging areas in NVIDIA, and emerging areas means both geographies. It's hard to find where Kate is at a given time if it's not in virtual. She was in Azerbaijan last week. She was in DC the day before yesterday or something like this. I don't know where you are, Kate, is these days, but she's super active, super passionate about tinyML, and we are very fortunate to have her here, not just as a presenter, but really as a mindset behind tinyML for Good, as our inspiration and as our leader. And Kate has tons of awards. I mean, I can spend half of your presentation going through her recent awards, which are actually very well deserved. She is a Business Insider Top 100 Transformer in 2020. Kate was awarded VentureBeat Woman in AI award in 2020. AI for Good Advocate, and the list goes on and on and on. I'm not sure it's not the end of the list, Kate. It's just the beginning of the list. So really excited about having you here and looking forward to your presentation. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Evgeny. Hey, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today and be given the opportunity to kick us off with this opening keynote for the very first tinyML for Good workshop, where we will really try to put for good into tinyML. And today we're really fortunate to be able to hear from experts from across the world and across sectors on how technology and AI can be used for social good. I know we have a pretty packed agenda, including for the keynote. So without further ado, let's get started. And to get us started, I wanted to remind us a little bit about the tinyML Foundation vision. Most of you on this call are actually familiar with the vision, which is a new world with trillions of intelligent devices enabled by tinyML technologies that can sense, analyze, and autonomously act together. But you might ask us, what does it really mean to put in for good into tinyML? Well, it's building on top of this vision and making sure that we use our technology to improve the way billions of people live, interact with each other, and contribute to achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Something that we tend to forget as technologists is that the tech we build, the solutions we build are here to enable. And I really want to emphasize on enabling. Technology is not an end to a mean, but really a mean to enhancing experiences and improving lives. Sometimes with all the hype around AI, around technology advancements, we tend to forget about it. But the core reason why we're here today and why we're doing this is to make people's lives better. So I often say that there are two big driving forces behind tinyML, which are making it the absolute sweet spot for social innovation applications. And the first force is our technology. It's a combination of low power, resource constrained, easy to use, low cost technology. And the second one, on the other side, we have our ecosystem, which is a combination of industry, researchers, developers, which brings the smartest people in the world and across geos. And the combination of those two driving forces makes it more minds, more people innovation to solve more complex problems. And that's why tinyML is really at this intersection and constitute this sweet spot for social good, and more particularly to advance the Sustainable Development Goals. But what are the UN Sustainable Development Goals? And to explain this to us, I'd love to welcome an expert, Fran Baker, who is Senior Social Innovation Manager at ARM and also fellow tinyML for Good committee member. Hey, Fran.
Hello, Kate.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. And you?
I'm great, thanks. Can you please introduce yourself, what you do at ARM, and how you got involved in tinyML for Good Foundation?
Yes, absolutely. So hi everyone, I'm Fran Baker. As Kate mentioned, I lead social impact and innovation within ARM's sustainability function. And that really means managing our external relationship to society and the environment through our impact partners and programs worldwide. And that's really where we're exploring global challenges as a positive driver for meaningful and responsible tech innovation, connecting business capabilities with societal responsibilities, and extending the benefits of technology to people in areas that don't currently have tech products and services designed for them. And that's through co-creation and inclusive innovation.
Wow, that's such an inspiring work you're doing. I'm really stoked, but I would love to ask you a $1 million question. What are the Sustainable Development Goals?
Well, the Sustainable Development Goals, which you can see in front of you, are the 17 interconnected global goals agreed to by 193 member states of the UN in 2015. And these goals all have the aim to create a better world by 2030. So ending poverty, fighting inequality, urgently addressing the climate crisis. But behind the beautiful visuals that you see, the 17 global goals, is the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. 169 targets with 232 indicators that sit behind that, each of them used to measure progress towards reaching these goals. And increasingly over the last few years, businesses, NGOs, organizations are coordinating around these goals because they provide a universal language for people to get on board with. And we can basically look at these goals as the world's largest to-do list. And at ARM, these goals underpin our sustainability approach and also what we're looking at in the tinyML for Good working group here. And that's because 70% of the targets can be directly affected by advanced technologies, which means that this tiny tech has a significant role to play in addressing some of the world's biggest challenges.
You mean we can actually help solve 70% of the Sustainable Development Goals through technology? That's really, that's really amazing. You've been at the intersection of sustainability, social innovation, and technology. Can you tell our community why it's important that we collaborate with other bodies to contribute to solving 70% of these goals?
Well, I think it's just important to recognise that these are really wicked problems and no individual organisation or business is going to solve them alone. So that cross-sector and also industry-wide collaboration is essential, but also that, Kate, you mentioned technology is an enabler, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's neutral. It exists within the ecosystem it's designed for. And so from my perspective, collaboration between the private sector and civil society, between the problem holders and the community is what's really important, because each organization, each individual brings a different perspective, brings a different skill set. And so diversity, equity, and inclusion is core to responsible technology design and development. And that includes diversity of thought, diversity of skill sets. And I think just thinking around the fact that tinyML and other technologies don't exist in a vacuum, and the challenges that we're facing today, from the climate crisis that everyone might have heard about at COP26 the last few weeks to inequity, needs all minds working towards them. And so on the call today, we've got problem solvers all around the world. Some people who are familiar with tinyML, others that aren't. And so our hope is that today we can share some amazing examples of tinyML in action for good. We're interested in progress over perfection, so we know that we have some blind spots and areas that we need to improve on, and to recognise our limitations. So surfacing some of these big picture problem statements and hopefully to spark interest in what could come next in this hugely interesting space.
This is exactly why we're here today. It's really to get started and start making progress, whether it's small. Thank you so much, Fran. Fran, for everybody, will be still online, and you can, if you have questions for her, you can ask her in the chat and she'll actively answer your questions. Thank you, Fran.
No problem. Thanks, Kate.
So Fran told us about the Sustainable Development Goals, but we can't boil the ocean. So like I mentioned, tech is an enabler. And because the list of goals is long, as a committee, we've decided to start somewhere and start looking into three main areas. The first one is goal 4, quality education for all, which is highly relevant for technology because especially when you look at education, at STEM education. The second one is around good health and well-being. This is to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being at all ages. This is highly relevant today, especially while we are still in the midst of a pandemic. Last one is a kind of groupment of goals, which I would group under climate change and environmental sustainability. These are goals 13, 14, and 15, which look at climate action, life below water, and life on land. So we'll have experts from UNICEF, from the UN Foundation, and from a government to actually tell us more about these goals and the problem statements that they see. The lightning talks that will be following the keynotes will be broken down in these 3 areas, and the working group we're really hoping to create as an output of this workshop will too. But before we dive into this, I'd love for us to listen to a few inspirational words. And to kick us off, we have a couple of words from Dr. Claire Melamed. She's the CEO of the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data, a growing network that brings together several hundred members, government, private sectors, and civil society to harness and leverage data and data technology towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals.
Warm greetings to the attendees and the speakers at the tinyML for Good conference. My name is Claire Melamed, and I'm the CEO of the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data. Through our 300 partner organizations from all sectors and all parts of the world, we help deliver better data, better decisions, and in the end, better lives. I'm the CEO of an organization which is focused on data for social impact. And so perhaps I shouldn't admit that I do find a lot of the global conversation on AI, on the Internet of Things, and the 4th Industrial Revolution sometimes somewhat vague and a little bit devoid of content. But as we strive for the United Nations global goals of fighting climate change, clean water for all, and getting all girls an education, we are concerned with what is possible for the vast majority of humans on the planet. Many of them sadly don't exist in government records or have any digital footprint at all, meaning they miss out on key social services. As an international community of technologists, we can do more to prevent people from getting left behind. The pandemic has shown us that until all of us are safe, none of us are. My organization is working with the UN to broker partnerships with technology companies that can help African governments to apply the world's best solutions to the world's worst problems. That is how we came to work closely with NVIDIA Corporation and today's host, the tinyML Foundation. We've worked with satellite data and Earth observation specialists, including NASA, to create open data cubes and algorithms that monitor drought, flooding, crop yields, and illegal mining. The low and middle income countries that we work with are grappling with the worst impacts of a climate crisis that they played no part in creating. Our Data for Now initiative focuses on closing data lags and gaps so that governments in Africa, Asia, and Latin America can have actionable information on poverty mapping, flood risks, food security, and more. And our partnership with NVIDIA aims at strengthening resilience and capacity for the public data systems through provision of technology infrastructure and data science capacity in Africa. People should not be deprived of an education, food, or emergency support because those who would help them lack the data to take action to do so. Despite the sometimes off-putting technical language, fundamentally, AI and the Internet of Things are technologies made by humans and for humans. But if 99 out of 100 of the decision makers are situated in a few rich countries, then we can't hope to harness the true potential of those technologies to save lives in every country in the world. There's a danger that digital colonialism further oppresses the have-nots in an already unequal world. We want technology to be an equalizing force and not one that increases the inequalities in our system. That's why your focus on machine learning in low resource settings is so invaluable. The open secret of artificial intelligence is that it's nothing without the natural intelligence of people with common sense and lived experience. Peer learning among this community of researchers, of engineers, and sector specialists will open up how tinyML can support the Sustainable Development Goals in Zanzibar, in Malawi, in Paraguay, in Fiji, and the rest of the world. We stand ready to work with you to help these new approaches be adapted locally. I'll end up by wishing you a productive and an inspiring day. We look forward to learning more about this exciting frontier as it applies to conservation, education, healthcare, and many other areas. Thank you.
And these were extremely inspiring words by Claire. In her address, she mentioned that we need to pair up the world's best solutions to the world's worst problems. And this is exactly why this collaboration and today's event workshop is extremely important. This is what we're trying to achieve. I would even go one step further than she did and say we are pairing the world's worst problems with the best people to build the best solution. And this is why we're all here today. And this is not a tops-down approach. It's a collaborative approach driven by community, public and private sector. Again, we're looking at more minds, more people in innovation to solve some of the world's most complex problems. So to illustrate what it means in each of our three main areas of focus, we have amazing speakers today joining us. And the first is Thomas Davin from UNICEF. He's the director of UNICEF Office of Innovation, and he has spent over 20 years at UNICEF working in countries such as Thailand, Algeria, and more. And he's going to talk to us today about how COVID has put in front of us a once-in-a-generation opportunity to reimagine how children learn and how community and how the technology can help address this. So let's listen to Thomas' words.
Good afternoon, everyone. We believe that we are on the verge of a revolution in terms of the business model around education. That revolution will be underpinned by the quality and the accessibility of the solutions that we can devise that will be underpinned by machine learning and AI. COVID has been an immense game changer for the world. We today have more than 80 million children still out of school because of how COVID has impacted communities and schooling for so many children in the world. Yet we also believe that we today have the tools and the technology to change the world and to change the way education connects with children, enables children to really leapfrog some of the challenges they have and connect to learning outcomes in ways that they haven't had the possibility before. We believe that in multiple countries of the world, education is being today changed, that solutions that connect machine learning and AI to education management and information system that enable children to have personalized adaptive learning journeys, that essentially enable teachers to focus their energy, their efforts, their passion towards specific issues that children are confronted by on an individual level, rather than having a class-wide, boring engagement exercise that does not do justice to what every single child needs in terms of their own gifts and their own challenges. Technology today enables us to go beyond that. And we want to use machine learning, AI, robotics, all kinds of new technologies and emerging tech in ways that we haven't before to revolutionize the way that education is being offered to children around the world, to make education really an exciting journey for all of these children rather than something that they feel they have to go through and they have no choice around. We are today building a global innovation learning hub with our partners in Finland that will be based in Helsinki that will essentially benefit from the depth and the strength of the Finnish education model and the ecosystem of the innovation. We want you and any partner that is interested to join us in really ideating around how do we make use of that technology that is ready today to benefit millions of children around the world? How do we today really build blue unicorns for education. A unicorn that is not focused on money making, but is focused on using emerging technology to benefit hundreds of millions of children and have a social impact, have an impact that will change the world of tomorrow. We can be the architect of that tomorrow's future together. We'd love for you to join us in that journey for childhood. Thank you.
Thanks, Thomas, and thanks, UNICEF, for this video. Like he mentioned, technology can change the way education connects with children. And to be honest with you, I would love for the next blue unicorn or education unicorn to be born out of this community today. So I'm really looking forward to see the applications in the lightning talks, the problem statements and the solutions that will come out of our educational track. The second problem statement and the goal 3 that we're looking into is good health and well-being. And to talk about some of the practical technology implementations and examples he has seen across the market, I'm really pleased to welcome today Victor Oungo, Senior Africa Regional Manager at the United Nations Foundation and the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data. Hey, Victor, are you here?
Yeah, thank you, Kate. It's a pleasure being here. Thanks so much for having me on this program.
Thanks for joining us today. I will ask, can you please introduce yourself and tell us what you're doing at at UNF and at the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data?
Thank you so much. I'm the Senior Regional Manager for Africa for the UN Foundation Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data. I lead on the technical and political engagement with all our African government partners, helping them to address the couple of data gaps and challenges that they have that is required for, advancing the SDGs and of course for national development priorities.
That's amazing. Since I've known you, you've really been at the forefront of driving technology adoption in emerging economies, including Africa. What are the challenges or what challenges has the pandemic and the situation of our healthcare systems on the continent surfaced? What can we do with technology to address those?
That's a $1 million question.
One more.
Yeah, well, last year when COVID struck and a lot of African countries started reporting incidents of COVID, we did, together with the UN Economic Commission for Africa, put together a program to support all the countries in Africa. We did personally, I myself, reaching out to about 50 countries in Africa, trying to understand what are the key priorities, the data needs, etc. And there are quite a number of them, but I'm just going to quickly highlight 3 key, issues that came out of all the conversations that we had with over 50 countries in Africa. One is around the need for credible, disaggregated, real-time data on where the most affected population segments are and where the emergency services are located. People are scrambling, where can I go to get this type of service or that type of service, location type data, so to speak. And in terms of what we think technology could do to address that specific problem is, seeing the type of simple open source, effective technology data solutions or platforms that can help us aggregate, analyze and visualize health, population, and GIS data that is needed for quick decision making. And this was one major thing policy, planners and program managers were looking to find across the place, whether it's on COVID or malaria, if we expand the health issue. The second challenge was around constraints, whether it was geographic or economic constraints across many of the countries to access critical social services, such as healthcare, education, and nutrition. And these were hugely impacted by the COVID-19 restrictions. So what can technology help us to do here? We want to see low-cost digital solutions that could help provide public health, education, and information access in local languages, to people across these countries. We want to see easy-to-use, low-cost solutions that enable rural dwellers to reach healthcare providers for support. The third critical challenge was around the fact that the public health system had very poor digital infrastructures, across most part of Africa, which made, health services delivery very difficult across these countries. What do we want to see in terms of technology innovations? Can we have, machine learning AI solutions that would help us predict vulnerability and health outcomes, These machine learning solutions can help plan and deploy vaccine distribution across the place. We want to see innovations that could help extend emergency healthcare services deliveries, to hard to reach areas. Deliveries, services like immunization, vaccines, malaria treatment, blood services. These are critical, issues that people needed support around. And we feel that technology could help close most of those gaps. Yeah, thank you, Kate.
Thank you so much. You've highlighted so many different issues and problem statements that I'm sure the community will be thrilled to start working and innovating on. I love the data for our program and the mandate that you have, which is better data, better decision, better lives. What advice or considerations would you give our community here today looking to use AI and IoT or even tinyML applications to solve some of these challenges based on a sustainable and ethical use of data, which is critical, especially when we talk about healthcare?
That's a tough one indeed. But maybe two major things. One, particularly for this, community. First thing is that we must ensure that, we have a strong ethical and human rights-based approach to the use of data for tinyML innovations. We all believe that data is a critical enabler for this community, especially for those who are working in the area of healthcare. But please remember that it's not just about data, but it's about a human rights-based approach that ensures representation and inclusion and the protection of the privacy of the individuals who own these data points that are being used. So that's the first thing, that a human rights-based approach be applied to our use of data. And the second advice is around the fact that we need to create more strategic partnerships that make collaborations work. You will agree with me that one inherent opportunity of the global goals, or the SDGs, is collaboration and sustainable partnerships, goal 17. Collaboration is the most effective approach for addressing these complex global challenges, whether it's health or the climate crisis. And please do note that we will not achieve these goals or sustainable development if we don't get to work together. We need more collaborations. And one of the key stakeholders of the ecosystem that we need more collaboration is with you, the AI community, the tech enthusiasts, the private sector. And I would like to end with a quote from Henry Ford. And it states, coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is progress. Working together is success. End of quotes. Thank you so much, Kate. And over back to you.
I love the quote. Thank you so much, Victor, for joining us today. And like you said, collaboration is important. And that's the reason why we are all here today in this workshop.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Food shortage is a real threat to us today and tomorrow. Emerging economies are still largely relying on farming and agriculture are the most at risk. And this is why we have chosen climate change and environmental sustainability at the third group of goals that we will try to work on as a community, a group of goals 13, 14, and 15. And to talk to us about environmental sustainability and agriculture, we are very pleased today to have a senior consultant, Ibrahim Zulbalayev from Azerbaijan, where the Ministry of Agriculture has been trying to use technology to improve crops and yields. Let's listen to their problem statement.
Dear colleagues, first of all, I hope you are all doing very well. I'm Ibrahim, a senior consultant at Fruit and Vegetable Department at the Ministry of Agriculture of the Republic of Azerbaijan. Today, I'm going to give you a brief introduction about our project named Development and Promotion of Sustainable Orchard Management Practices in Azerbaijan. To start off with, I would like to briefly touch on world statistic data. According to Food and Agriculture Organization, world population is expected to grow by 2.3 billion people and reach 9.15 billion people in 2050. And nearly all of this growth is forecast to take place in the developing countries. And as the population grows, there will be a need for 60% more agricultural production by 2050 in comparison to 2005. Even though this will be mainly achieved by higher yields and increased cropping intensity, the land expansion will also be an important factor here, as such that the projected figure is 1.7 billion hectare. Even though there is increased demand for higher agricultural production worldwide, fruit loss and fruit waste are still big issues across food supply chain. And this case is more severe in developing countries than developed countries. For instance, there's an example comparison in apple fruit supply chain between South Africa and South Tyrol in Italy, where we can see that in South Africa, around 60% of total apple fruit produced is either wasted or lost. And this content in Italy is 30%. And the way the lost or wasted fruit is handled in Italy is way different than how it's done in South Africa. So in Italy, the fruit is processed, and which is value-adding process. So it's not being left on landfills like in developing countries. The main problem here in considerably low in the world's current average. If you look at the table provided in the slide, you can see that, for instance, in walnut industry, the world average is 5 tons per hectare, whereas in Azerbaijan, it's 3.3 tons per hectare. In apple industry, worldwide average is 55 tons. In contrast, in Azerbaijan, it's 10 tons per hectare. And the main reasons that lead to lower production rate in our country are lack of agricultural database, like soil maps, and insufficient agricultural knowledge and skills, for example, precision agriculture, which I'll mention in the next slide. In general, most farmers ignore the role of climate in the biology of pests and disease causal agents. For instance, historically, Azerbaijani apple growers used to deal with 2 generations of culling moths, Chidia pomonella, which is a main pest in apple orchards, and the symptoms of the pest on fruits can be seen on the picture here. However, continuous days with warm weather and without precipitation here in Azerbaijan between mid-July and mid-August 2021 provided suitable conditions for the development of the 3rd generation, which farmers were not used to get before. Around 30-35% growers encountered with massive crop losses. In addition to this, this year, powdery mildew in hazelnut orchards, downy mildew and powdery mildew in grapevine orchards in Gabala, Ismaili, and Shamakhi regions led to lower production, poor harvest quality, and stunted plant growth. And the symptoms of respective diseases and on fruits can be seen on these pictures. And as we know, any stress factors that alter plant physiology in grapevine orchards has a big impact on the quality of wine produced. So as I mentioned in the beginning, our project is named Development and Promotion of Sustainable Orchard Management Practices in Azerbaijan. And in this project, our aims are to improve agricultural database by collecting site-specific climate and soil data, increase crop production, minimize long-term risk factors, and support farmers in undertaking field works. Related to this project proposal, I would like to briefly mention a pilot project that we implemented in 2 regions of northern Azerbaijan named Guba and Gusar, where we installed a total of 4 weather stations in order to cover 50 villages. And the aim in this project was to send alerts on pest and disease infections, harsh weather conditions, to farmers that were registered in our local system, which is named Electronic Agricultural Information System. And the target growers were apple, cherry, nectarine, and peach growers. During this season, we sent 25,793 SMS notifications carrying information about pest and disease infections and harsh weather conditions, as I said before. And we sent these SMS notifications to more than 5,800 farmers. And at the same time, the Telegram channel called Digital Agriculture was established to provide more detailed and flexible risk information. And at the end of the season, we carried out a quality survey where 48% farmers said, I use this service. 38% said, I want more detailed information. 7% said, I don't know how to use this service. And 7% said, I don't use this service. As I mentioned in the beginning, the main obstacles of our farmers here in Azerbaijan are the lack of knowledge and access to precision agriculture tools and soil maps. And these are the subject areas that will be covered by this project. In terms of precision agriculture, we'll mainly use weather stations because without knowing air temperature, relative humidity, precipitation, leaf moisture, and wind speed, one cannot calculate plant water need, or whether there's a risk of disease infection, or whether the current weather conditions are suitable for chemical spray applications, etc. Even though climate data is available through different public sources, they are significantly variable and doesn't allow farmers to plan their management actions successfully. And we also have a very good experience in implementing this project as a pilot project this season in 2021. And another important factor is soil maps, because knowledge of the physical and chemical characteristics of the soil is a basis of agricultural planning. In many cases, Azerbaijani farmers carry out orchard plantation without a proper soil analysis, and this leads to project failure and incur additional costs for farmers. Doing this with wet chemical methods take a long time and require hazardous chemicals. That's why we plan to use X-ray fluorescence, which is a very fast alternative to conventional methods, which I will mention in detail in the slides. So precision agriculture, in this direction, we aim to use 4 weather stations in the northern part of Azerbaijan, where we implemented a pilot project, which I mentioned before. And in order to, the aim in this part will be to broaden the cover area so that we can cover more fruit orchards. And the target crops will be the same: apple, cherry, peach, and nectarine. And the target diseases also will be similar, same actually: apple scab, brown rot, culling moss, etc. In Şamaxı and İsmailuru regions, as you can see here in the map, that place is located in the north, and in Şamaxı and İsmailuru regions located in the kind of middle. We plan to install 15 weather stations to cover about 80% of the vineyards in those regions, which is a grapevine here is the most popular fruit. The target pests and diseases will be downy mildew, powdery mildew, grapevine black rot, grapevine berry moss, grey mold, and anthracnose. In terms of Gabela region, which is located near to Şamaxı and İsmailuru region, is called Gabela region. We'll install 20 weather stations in order to cover 85% of hazelnut orchards in the region. And the target diseases will be powdery mildew and anthracnose. In the case of soil mapping, as I mentioned before, XRP spectrometer is a fast, non-destructive, and one of the simplest and most accurate analytical methods for elemental analysis of macronutrients, as well as micronutrients and heavy metals in the entire plant system, including the root system, soil, seeds, fertilizers, and the shoot system. And the information, the result, the information is obtained on both the quality and the quantity of the sample tested. An example of such a device is shown here in the picture. This task will be utilized to analyze soils in walnut and hazelnut orchards that are under production in Shaki and Zaqatala economic region, which is shown here in highlighted here in red on the map. It's also this region also includes Gabela region, which I mentioned in the precision agricultural task. In addition to soil physical and chemical properties, the maps that will be generated by using GIS software will also contain information on planting year, planting year, and productivity of the gardens that are under production. So at the end of the project, our expected outcomes from this project are application of agricultural practices such as pesticide application, irrigation at correct rate and time, so prevention of spray drift, nutrient leaching and water waste, better pre-planting soil evaluation and long-term decision-making for farmers, so they will have reduced risks and higher return on investment, reduce expenditure, higher income, and ability to improve agricultural policy at a governmental level. So thank you for your time and for your attention. I hope you enjoyed this presentation.
Thank you to the Ministry of Agriculture of Azerbaijan for this very detailed problem statement. If you would like to contribute and to get involved, please make sure to reach out. What I wanted to highlight with this presentation, with this video, is really the universality of the challenges that we're facing across the world. Agriculture, climate change, and environmental sustainability are problems that, no matter your location, are going to become important, or are becoming more and more important and pressing. And we all have to get involved. If we contribute to helping Azerbaijan solving this issue, this is something that could be potentially replicated in Italy, in South Africa, in Latin America, in other parts of the world. And that's really what shows how a community, or global community, can get involved in the greater good. So to wrap us up, I wanted to provide you with few closing statements. We saw throughout this keynote that technology represents a tremendous socio-economical opportunity and is now central to driving innovation at every levels, including to solve the Sustainable Development Goals. COVID-19 and the pandemic have really highlighted the interconnected nature of our rapidly globalizing world. Fran has mentioned previously that we are working towards solving, the Sustainable Development Goals, we need everybody to be represented, because ultimately the technology we build needs to be a reflection of the diversity of our world. And diversity can take different shape and forms. Diversity can bring diversity of thoughts, diversity of solutions, and solve the diverse problems that our world is facing today. We are doing great today with diversity of regions. On this workshop, we have people from all over the world, whether it's Africa, Latin America, Asia, Europe, US, you name it. But we do need to do better as a community and as a group to have a greater gender diversity. And this is something that we're highly committed to change and to contribute to as tinyML Foundation and tinyML for Good community. It will take a village and a real greater digital collaboration between the public sector, the private sector, and all communities to achieve real, scalable, and useful AI. And as a community, you or we have a really important role to play. We will not solve the goals, but we can definitely contribute to them in a sustainable and a meaningful way. So please get involved. If you want to ask us questions, if you want to make suggestions to help some of the problem statements that we've highlighted throughout this keynote, you can reach us at forgood@tinyml.org. I wanted to close us with a quote from Aikwe Ama, who is a famous Ghanaian author. And the quote goes, "Alone, I am nothing. I have nothing. We have power, but we will never know it. We will never see it work unless we come together and make it work." I really hope this event inspires you to get together and try to change the world as much as we are inspired, as the tinyML Foundation and tinyML for Good committee to contribute to solving the Sustainable Development Goals. Have a great event. Thanks again for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to seeing all the solutions, the contributions, the suggestions that you have on the 3 different areas that we focused on as a committee, and seeing how our community, tinyML, can really contribute to solving the Sustainable Development Goals. I'll still be around. If you have questions, please pop them in the chat and I'll be happy to answer them throughout this workshop. Thank you.
As always, we'd like to thank our sponsors. Without this, it can't be done. So specifically our strategic partners, these are companies that have got involved in tinyML to help steer the direction and set the vision and drive the vision. And we'd love to see more strategic partners come along. We meet once a quarter where we can talk about some of these issues and technologies in a smaller group, and come out of those meetings with specific calls to action. So if you'd like to get involved with the tinyML Foundation, and we'll give you more information. So the partners are Aeon Devices, ARM, DeepLight, Edge Impulse, EMSA, Greenwaves Technology, Gravity, HOTG, Imagimob, Latent AI, Maxim, who are now part of Analog Devices, Qualcomm, IXO, Reality AI, Renesas, Rexon, SAP, Seed, Sensimal, Stream Analyze, SynSense, and Sentient. In terms of executive partners, we have various levels of partners and sponsorship. There's more information about this at tinyml.org. But we have ARM, who's been a great supporter since the beginning. Edge Impulse, who is a great solution for all tinyML developers. Qualcomm, again, one of the founding members of tinyML Foundation. And Sentient, and then our platinum partners, DeepLight, Reality AI, Renesas, and our gold partners, Latent AI, Maxim Integrated, now Analog Devices, Seed, Sensimal, SynSense, and our silver partners, Aeon Devices, EMSA, HOTG, Greenwaves, Gravity, Imagimob, IXO, Rexon, SAP, Stream Analyze. So thank you. Once again, this has been a fantastic event. I've learned a lot and I've been inspired tremendously. I hope you have. And it's now about rolling our sleeves up and getting down to action and helping the people that have requested help this morning in some of their talks, and showcasing some of their global initiatives that they're working on. I'm sure we can all come together and give a helping hand. And let's all get together and solve some of these global challenges. And if you need more information, just go to tinyml.org.